This is Gemara Metziah Daf Non, and we're holding on Memtes Amid Beis. We did pull up a little bit short, but anyone that has looked at Daf Non, you'll see it's a little bit of a shorter Amid. Yes, in depth, in difficulty, these are extremely difficult Gemaras, but let's try to do what we do and at least get Pashit Pshat. So we're in the middle of Memtes Amid Beis, and after the Mishnah, which began and threw us into the sugya of aina, of overcharging. In the Mishnah, we learned that what is the percentage of overcharging in which there is a problem? It is a shtos. It is a 6. The Mishnah, there was a tzad that Rav Tarfon learned it was a third, but due to the longer amount of time to back out, the Tagri Lud says, don't do us any favor, Rav Tarfon. We'll stick with the chachamim of a shtos, and that's what really we're going to go with. Is always going to be the shtos. Now, the question is, how do we calculate that shtos? So first of all, let's just go back to a quick moment, Rashi on the Mishnah. The second Rashi points out that once there's a shtos lemeka, chayiv lehishiv loi, kol an asai arba kesef, you have to return all the money. You have to return all the money. We began the Gemara, and in the Gemara we had a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav said we have something called ashtos mekach, and Shmuel said we have something called ashtos ma'is. And really the question is, what exactly is that machlokes? That according to Rav, it goes by the mekach. It means the amount that the person paid above the true value. That's when we calculate the shtos, the 6. According to Shmuel, when we talk about the shtos, it means the shtos ma'is. It means either the value of the item or the amount of money paid. So therefore, and as the Gemara said, that Shmuel really is going to hold, you need a shtos bishtei stadim. So Tanan, and again, with more cases, we'll get more clarity. Tanan, we're about 15 lines from the bottom. The first one of the line is Tanan. Ha'ino dalid kesef. What did our Mishnah say? Ha'ino is 4 out of me'esrim v'arba of 24. Kesef litzela. A kesef litzela, which is a shtos lemekach. So says the Gemara, my love, what is this case of 4 of 24? Tizavin shavi esrim. Tizavin shavi esrim be'esrim v'arba. You sold something that was worth 20 for 24, and therefore you paid 4 more of the value, which is 4 out of 20 is a fifth of the value of the item, but 4 out of 24 is 6, a sixth of the item of the value paid. So again, right here we see very clearly, again, the items were 20, you charged 24. So that extra 4 that was paid, either we say it's a fifth of the value of the item, of the mekach, and therefore, of course, it's real enough. Or we say, no, it's a sixth of the total value, 4 out of 24. Therefore, it's within the 6 limit, and there's no. So says the Gemara, so what do we see? We see that we go with Shmuel, because we see that you're allowed to calculate the shtos ma'is. Why? Because this is a case of aina, but only in this case it sounds like. According to Rav, this is a fifth. So why would the Mishnah give such a case? Sounds like the fact that the Mishnah gave a case that the shtos, the 6, which is yes aina, excuse me, I said it slightly off, which is yes aina, sounds like he's dafka on the case where it's a shtos of the ma'is. 4 of the 24 paid. Says Gemara, loy dezavin esrim v'arba for 24, but esrim it sold for 20. So now it's the reverse. So again, you paid 4 less, but now it's a fifth of the. It's a sixth of the money paid of the ma'is, and it's a fifth of the mekach. Everything just flipped. So min misane moicher, which means that the moicher, the seller, is the one that was underpaid. And Maseifa and Masei Mutalach Sabich Year Letagu Lekrai Vamrav Nachmin Loishanu Aleloikeach So the Mishnah clearly can't be talking about the Meicher, because Rav Nachman taught us that the Meicher could always back out, and the Mishnah gave us a time period in which the Meicher could back out. So says the Gemara, you're right, Vitamna. Okay, so the case is you sold something 24 for 28. And again, so over here, it's 4 of 28. You overpaid by 4, which is a sixth of the value. So again, says the Gemara that we don't necessarily have a raya to Shmuel, because it's a way to paint the case of the Mishnah that fits with Rav. Tanan, and we try again to bring a raya to Shmuel, 8 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Utamnya. It's 8 out of 24. So again, says the Gemara, the exact same Gemara. My lad, this Zavin Shavi Shitzri Besim Varba. You sold something 16 for 24. Shmani Shlish Lamais Nami Shaninu like Shmuel. Like the Zavin Shavi Besim Varba Shitzar. So like 24 for 16. Says more. What do you mean? Meaning Sanet Somaycher. Ema Seif Armalem Kol Yomutulach. Zavam Ram Nachman Lo Shanu Lokeach. Ava Meicher Leilem Chayzer. The exact same Chakvataria. So it can't be the Meicher was underpaid. Says, you're right, you paid 24 for 32. So again, no raya to Shmuel. So we tried 2 rayas to Shmuel, and both of them, the Gemara deflects that from the Mishnah itself, we do not have a raya. Says the Gemara, Tani Kavazi to Shmuel, I'll bring you a raya, says a raya to Shmuel, 2 lines on the bottom. Mishahu tal yad al yaina. The one who has the upper hand, Ketzad, says the Brisa. If you sold something 5 or 6, he paid too much. You can say, tell me give me my money, or tell me or give me that which I was overcharged. But on the flip side, cases we turn over to today's daf of Daf Nun Amud Aleph. If the case flips, and he sold something 6 for 5, meaning the buyer paid less of the value of the item, the seller is defrauded. Shavashesh bechamish minesan moicher yad moichel yoyna. So says the Gemara, 2 different cases that we see in a brisa. So ask the Gemara. And that's going to be the raya to Shmuel. As we see clearly in this brayso, so let's go to the first case, that even when the 6 is of the mois, like Shmuel said, then there is Aina. So clearly, this is a clear raya to Shmuel. Says the Gemara, okay, meaning we have a raya to Shmuel, and the Gemara leaves it. Sometimes we ask kashas. Over here, the Gemara leaves it. So now, says the Gemara, Ibayiluhu. We have a kasha that's now going to begin, quite famous sugya in Shas. Famous not for its ease, but for the exact opposite. Its difficulty. And this is going to take us for really the duration of the daf. We'll see how far we go. I don't know if we'll make it all the way to Amid Beis on the bottom, but let's see how far we go. Says the Gemara, Pachais Mishtas, if the overcharging is less than a 6 l'Rabbanan, what's the halacha? Is the mechila right away, or only after the time that he showed it to the relative or a merchant? If you're going to tell me then ma'ika bein shtos lebachas mishtos. Then what's the difference between a shtos and less than a shtos? Meaning, the Mishnah said that at the shtos, that's when there is oina. So ask the Gemara, if it's less than a 6, in the case that it's less than a 6, according to the Rabbanan, in which there's no oina, so at what point is it considered that it's a mechila? Again, if you paid me more than the value, but not too much more, so clearly you are Michael. At what point are you Michael? Is it right away, or is it the amount of time to show it to someone else? And if you're going to tell me that it's the amount of time to show it to someone else, ma'ika bein shtos Lipachas mishtos. So says the Gemara, no. Ika. There is a difference between a 6 and less than 6. Dilushtos, yadal yaina. If there's a real aina at 6, then yadal yaina, the one that was overcharged or undercharged, the one that got messed over, has the upper hand. If he wants, he could back out, or if he wants, he could keep the sale. Umachzir, I know. Whereas vilu pachs mishtos, kaina umachzir, I know. If it's less than a 6, the halacha is there's a kinyan and you just return the I know. So what is the halacha? So what we're seeing is that less than a 6, in which yesterday in the Mishnah we learned there's no I know. We're now learning what does it mean that there's no I know. It means that there is a mechila after a certain amount of time, but before that amount of time, he is able to claim back at least the money that he overcharged. So says the Gemara, Tashema, let's bring a raya. 6 lines to the bottom. Chazul l'divrei chachamim, they came back to the chacham in the Mishnah, meaning the Tagri Lud decided that which Rav Tarfon gained was nothing because they had too long to back out. Savrua, so they thought, so they thought that the Mishnah is parallel, that anything that's less than a 6, according to the Chachamim, is less than a 3rd, according to Rav Tarfon Dami. So Amr ben Shalom b'chas Mishtos l'Rabbanan, v'chleishia l'tagel l'krayvai, or the Rav Tarfon kolayim, meaning the two halves of the Mishnah are equal, therefore Mishamachi Chazu. Makes a lot of sense. If you're going to tell me that if the overcharging and the undercharging wasn't a full 6, it was less than that, and the halacha when it's less than that is la'alter, right away there is a mechila, and then how will that compute to Rav Tarfon as we turn over to Nana Beis Rav Tarfon Nami La'al Tarfon Mechila? And in the world of Rav Tarfon, we're going to say the same thing, that if the overcharging, undercharging, if the oina is less than the requisite amount, right away it's a mechila. Amai chazru b'd Rav Tarfon. Why do they go back on the words of Rav Tarfon and go with the chachamim? Nichalu tvei. Excuse me, my chazru b'd Rav Tarfon nichalu tvei. They should be happier with Rav Tarfon. Why? Because that which the Rabbanan considered an oina is Rav Tarfon have mechila. According to Rav Tarfon, is a mechila right away, and therefore the Tagri Lud should be happy. Because in the medium amount, it's true. Once it's more than a 3rd, then it's true. Then the buyer has a long time to back out. But says the Gemara, but all that medium level between the 6th and the 3rd, the merchants should have been happy. Why? Because immediately it's considered mechila by the buyer in that whole amount, and therefore the buyer has no time at all. So you could overcharge them up until a 3rd, and miyad, the buyer wins, the seller wins, the tagrim, that the buyer can't say anything. Responds the Gemara. So therefore the Gemara wants to utilize this as a proof that it can't be that whenever the overcharging the aina is less than the requisite amount, that miyad is the mechila. Says the Gemara 4 lines down, misavers bachs mishlosh Rav Tarfon kebachs mishtos l'Rabbanan. Why are you thinking that the whole Mishnah is equal to me? Like mishtos v'ad shlish, from a 6th to a 3rd l'Rav Tarfon is kishtos atzma l'Rabbanan tami, is like the shtos itself, which is what? Kaina umachzer aina. So we're coming out that less than a 6, that's the Chachamim's parameter. At a 6, that's when they hold that there is aina. More than a 6, the whole thing is batal. Rav Tarfon said more than a 3rd. Between the 6th and the 3rd, Rav Tarfon is going to hold like the Chachamim 6, which is going to be kaina umachzer aina. Look at Rashi at the last wide line. Mishtos v'ashtos Rav Tarfon have aina kishtos atzma. Rav Tarfon isn't arguing mamish, just moving the line entirely. No, he's arguing at what point the sale is void. Did who? Mashvilu aina v'yadal yaina v'ali b'derabanan shneim chayzrin. Ask the Gemara, if this is true, but what were the Tagrim, the merchants, even initially happy? Tivsha debatel mekach l'Rabbanan la'ilam chayzer. Fruit. So let's bring a raya from the fact that they were originally happy before they knew that they gave them longer to back out. Well, let's bring a raya from the fact that they were originally happy that according to the Rabbanan, when one could be mivatel b'mekach, he can be chayzer forever. The kivan damar lehu Rav Tarfin avi, I know, because when Rav Tarfin said that from it is oina, what's oina? Now we're talking about the middle level, from the 6th to 3rd, which is a crazy amount of cases. That in all of those cases, Rav Tarfin held there is oina. So therefore, and the chachamim held, and the merchants assumed that there's a short amount of time that they'll be able to back out. Therefore, samchu. Ki amr lehu kol hayoim, then chazu. So now, says the Gemara proof from here, if you're going to tell me the bittul mekach is the amount of time to show it to the tiger l'karayv, b'mai samchu. So what were they happy about? Because again, they have a long time. The buyer has a long time to show it to someone and potentially back out. So why were the Tagrim even originally happy? Says the Gemara, Samchu b'shtos atzma. So you know what they were happy with originally? The Tagrim were happy with the 6 itself. Till Rav Tarfin mechila, well Rabbanan oina. So the Gemara changes. The Gemara says that once you hit a shtos, Rav Tarfin holds its mechila, and the Rabbanan holds its oina, kaina umachzer oina, and the Rabbanan hold it at the 6 itself. You have a right to demand back your money or cancel the sale. So says the Gemara, that's part A, trying to figure out at what point you could back out. So Ibayilahu asks the Gemara about 15 lines down. The first line is Mechila. Ibayilu. We're going deeper into the shayla that we're in the middle of discussing, and of course, as everyone's realizing, the complication over here is the lack of clarity, which often is the case in the Mishnah. Chachamim said a shtos, and Rav Tarfin said a third, but we don't know at what point and at what time. So there's 2 variables that keep on sliding over here. So says the Gemara, Bitol mekach l'Rabbanan is lo oilam chayzer, or is it only the amount of time to show to the tiger oil l'krayvay? That's when you can be chayzer. V'intim slaim rechlei shir l'tiger l'krayvay, ma'ika bein shtos liyeser al shtos. Ika dilu shtos minisane chayzer v'ilu yeser al shtos shteihem chayzrim. So on this shayla itself says the Gemara, what's the halacha? Meaning in the imtim salaymar, we said that what? That ma'ika bein shtos liyeser al shtos, and the difference is that out of 6, the one that was overcharged could back out, and more than a 6, anyone can back out. Now the Gemara is saying, so Tashema chazul devei chachamim. The merchants went back to the chachamim. So amr b'shlama bittul mekach l'Rabbanan b'chlei shir l'tagur l'krayvai. That when is it bottle? The amount of time to show it. Rav Tarfin kol hayoim b'shemach chazu, because then it was too long, so the merchants didn't like it. Ali amr bittul mekach l'Rabbanan lo'ilam chayzer. So my chazu b'd Rav Tarfin nicha l'hu tvedish. Be happy with Rav Tarfin. The kamash l'oina kol hayoim b'sulay batal mekach. Says the Gemara, V'sulai, the Kamash Lu'ay Nakal Hayoim, there was Oina the whole day, V'sulai. Says the Gemara, no, Batal Mekach Lo Shchiach. So again, the reason why the merchants weren't happy, because this case of Bittul Mekach, this middle level, the extreme level, is not so common, so it wasn't enough to warrant the merchants to be happy with such an arrangement. And we conclude today's share with Amar Rava. Let's lay down the law in some cases. Helchasa, Pachais Mishtos, Nikne Mekach, Yeser Al Shtos, Batal Mekach, Shtos, Kaina Umachzer Oina. And what's the time? Tanya Kavasi Derava. So now we have a Raya. Oina Pachais Mishtos, Nikne Mekach. Yeser al shtos, bittul mekach, shtos, kaino machzer anoi diver am nalsin, Rav Yehuda Nasi Omer, Yad Moicher Ala Yoina, Ratz Armela Tenli Mechi or Tenli Mashanisani, Vizezdev Leshir Letago Lekroivai. So Rav Yehuda Nasi argues, but we have a raya to Rava, that, and this is what we'll conclude with, Apalchos Mishtos, there is a kinyan, more than a shtos, the whole thing is void. At the shtos, that's going to be the level that there will be a kinyan, but you have to return the overcharging, and the amount of time is to show it to the tagar or to a relative.